The room was supposed to make history. Contracts were ready, executives were waiting. Two of the most powerful forces in heavy metal were about to join together, not as rivals, but as partners. It was the kind of moment that could redefine an entire genre. Instead, it ended with shattered wood on the floor, stunned silence in the air, and a decision that would permanently alter relationships between some of metal's most legendary figures. At the center of it all stood two men, Tom Araya, calm, disciplined, and respected, and Dave Mustaine, brilliant, intense, and dangerously unpredictable. For decades, Araya said little. He didn't rant. He didn't accuse. He simply kept his distance. But silence can say more than words ever could, and the truth behind that silence reveals a story of talent, ego, trust, and the moment everything fell apart. In the early 1980s, heavy metal was mutating into something faster, darker, and more aggressive. This wasn't the polished arena rock of the previous decade. This was something raw, something dangerous, and few bands embodied that transformation like Slayer. Formed in Huntington Park, California, Slayer didn't just play music, they unleashed it. Their sound was violent precision. Their lyrics were confrontational. Their performances were relentless. At the center stood Tom Araya, whose voice carried both fury and control. He wasn't just screaming, he was commanding. What made Araya different wasn't just his presence on stage. It was who he was off it. While other musicians lived fully inside the chaos, Araya lived between two worlds. During Slayer's early rise, he worked as a respiratory therapist, treating patients in hospitals by day and commanding crowds by night. He understood discipline, responsibility, structure. That grounded nature would later shape how he handled one of the most volatile moments in metal history. Across California, another story was unfolding, one born from rejection and fueled by rage. Dave Mustaine had once been part of Metallica, a band that was quickly gaining momentum. He was young, fiercely talented, and impossible to ignore. His guitar playing was sharp, aggressive, and technically fearless. But Mustaine also carried demons. His struggles with alcohol, drugs, and explosive behavior created friction within the band. Eventually, Metallica made a decision that would haunt Mustaine forever. They fired him. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He got on a bus and rode back to California alone. That journey would become the foundation of something new, something personal, something dangerous. He formed Megadeth, and from the very beginning, the band wasn't just about music, it was about proving something, proving he was better, faster, stronger, that losing Metallica had been their mistake, not his. Mustaine turned humiliation into fuel, and Megadeth became his weapon. By the mid-1980s, thrash metal had exploded into a global movement. Slayer, Megadeth, Metallica, and Anthrax formed the core of what fans would later call the Big Four. They weren't just bands. They were pioneers. They pushed each other creatively, competed relentlessly, inspired millions. But beneath the surface, not all relationships were equal. Tom Araya had built a reputation for professionalism. He showed up on time. He respected the process. He treated collaborators with consistency and calm. Mustaine, on the other hand, was unpredictable. Not because he lacked discipline, musically, far from it. His technical ability was undeniable. Albums like Peace Sells, But Who's Buying demonstrated a level of precision and aggression that few could match. But offstage, volatility followed him. Mood swings, outbursts, conflicts, and people noticed. They respected his talent, but they feared his instability. Still, no one expected what would happen next. In 1986, both Slayer and Megadeth stood at the peak of their early power. Slayer had just released Rain and Blood, produced by Rick Rubin. The album was a revelation, fast, brutal, and unapologetic. It redefined what heavy music could be. Megadeth was rising fast, earning respect and attention with every release. Industry executives saw an opportunity. Representatives from Combat Records and Def Jam Recordings proposed something extraordinary, a joint project between Slayer and Megadeth. A split EP, a shared tour, a collaboration between two titans. The potential was enormous. Fans would be ecstatic. Sales would skyrocket. The genre itself would evolve. A meeting was scheduled in Los Angeles. All that remained was agreement. But agreement requires trust, and trust was fragile. Tom Araya arrived early. So did guitarist Kerry King, whose aggressive playing had become one of Slayer's defining forces. Alongside him were guitarist Jeff Hanneman and drummer Dave Lombardo. They were ready, focused, professional. Megadeth bassist David Ellefson arrived on time as well. Calm but slightly uneasy, he explained that Mustaine was running late. That wasn't unusual. At first, no one worried. Minutes passed, then an hour, then two. Conversations slowed. Executives checked their watches. Frustration began creeping into the room. Studio time wasn't cheap. Opportunities like this weren't guaranteed. Then, finally, hours late, the door opened. Dave Mustaine walked in, and everything changed. Witnesses would later recall the moment vividly. His movements were unsteady, his eyes unfocused. The smell of alcohol lingered around him. He wasn't just late, he was intoxicated. At first, people tried to remain calm. They hoped the meeting could still move forward. But Mustaine didn't settle in. He escalated. He interrupted conversations, made sharp, cutting remarks, criticized Slayer's new album, mocked its production. The room grew tense. Kerry King didn't stay silent. He fired back. What began as tension became confrontation. What happened next would become legend. Mustaine spotted King's guitar, a custom instrument, unique and irreplaceable. Without warning, he grabbed it and smashed it. Wood splintered. The neck cracked. Pieces scattered across the floor. Time stopped. For a moment, no one moved. Then chaos erupted. King lunged forward, furious. Lombardo and Hanneman restrained him. Ellefson stood frozen in shock. Tom Araya stepped between them. Not in anger, but in control. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't threatening. He was witnessing, watching, understanding something fundamental in that moment. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a revelation. Trust had been broken. Not quietly, but violently. The meeting ended immediately. The collaboration was canceled. The opportunity vanished, and nothing would ever be the same again. The consequences were immediate. The joint EP never happened. The tour was abandoned. Millions in potential revenue disappeared. But the financial loss wasn't the real damage. It was the loss of trust. Rick Rubin reportedly refused to work with Mustaine after witnessing the aftermath. Industry professionals became cautious. Promoters demanded guarantees. Mustaine's reputation shifted from brilliant but difficult to brilliant but dangerous. For Tom Araya, the lesson was permanent. He didn't attack Mustaine publicly. He didn't insult him in interviews. He simply remembered. Because what he saw wasn't just anger. It was instability. And instability in a professional world is poison. Time passed. Thrash metal evolved. Careers rose and fell. New bands emerged. But the memory remained. In interviews years later, Araya spoke carefully. He didn't exaggerate. He didn't dramatize. He simply told the truth. He comes across as a nice guy, Araya once said, but I always keep my guard up. It wasn't hatred. It was caution. He had seen what Mustaine was capable of, not just musically, but personally. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. During tours where Slayer and Megadeth shared stages, including massive lineups alongside bands like Alice in Chains, interactions remained minimal, professional, polite, distant. They performed for the same fans, but they didn't share trust. No one ever questioned Mustaine's genius. His later work, including the landmark album Rust in Peace, proved his extraordinary ability. His songwriting was precise. His vision was unmatched. Tom Araya acknowledged that talent. He respected it, but respect and trust are not the same. Trust is built through consistency, reliability, control, and once broken, it rarely returns. For Araya, the choice was simple. He chose stability. He chose professionalism. He chose peace. Today, both men stand as legends. They helped shape a genre that changed music forever. Their influence cannot be erased, but their relationship tells a deeper story, one that goes beyond riffs and records. It's a story about character, because in the end, talent opens doors, but behavior decides which ones stay open. Araya didn't need to shout his opinion. He didn't need to attack or accuse. He made his decision quietly. He stepped back, and sometimes the quietest decisions echo the loudest. Because in a world defined by chaos, the greatest strength isn't fury, it's control. And the moment that guitar shattered on the studio floor, Araya understood something that would guide him for the rest of his career. Some risks aren't worth taking. Some partnerships aren't worth saving. And some lessons, once learned, never fade.